Hey there, welcome to ATL and 29, a podcast that looks at the NBA from the starting point of Atlanta. My name is Kevin Chenard. I'm here with Glen Willis and Tyler Jones. We are recording. It's like New Year's week, so I've completely lost track of days of the week. How about Saturday? Is that right?
Saturday's
Sounds
right.
right to me.
Yeah, Saturday night. And we don't often record when there's breaking news, but we're literally recording during breaking news. The Hawks just said that Larry Nance has a hand injury without really saying anything more than that in terms of detail. But if it's significant enough to warrant an injury report, that's probably not great. Uh,
Yeah.
what do you suspect is happening in the interim here, giving you no time to think about this whatsoever ahead of time?
Guess it's Dominic Barlow time.
I
Uh,
think it might be.
so he's been playing pretty well in the G League, and center's probably his best position. So I guess he'd get a crack at it. You might see Mo Gay as well. Um, maybe get some run there at the center position if Okongwu's hurt, but if Okongwu is still out, of course. But yeah, this Nance news is pretty. That he was. Seems like he'd been messing with his hand a couple. I want to say the last game too. So maybe it's been going on for a while, and it got worse. So hopefully it's not for a significant amount of time because for all his faults, he has been pretty. He is a useful player, even if he has flaws. And they're going to miss him, especially if Okongwu isn't available.
He was very important versus the Heat because Glenn was doing everything he could to deter Spo from trapping Trey, doubling Trey, and Clint cannot function as that outlet passer with the handle and the pass and stuff. And Nance really kept Spo from doing that. And so that was, and Nance does limit what you can do on defense. Not going to switch 1 through 5, I don't think, really.
Except for
But
short periods of time, they might.
yeah, throw an ATO, junk defense situation and stuff like that. But I mean, today they hadn't gotten to the level, and he worked hard. He impacted the ball handler when he got to the level and things like that. And it was weird that he couldn't play through Bam at all today, like at all, today. And so there are times when as long as he's managing on defense, right? And it helped that the Heat didn't have a lot of offensive firepower today outside of Hero, right? Duncan Robinson had to be their second creator, which is not ideal for any teams. Good shooter, etc. Um, but so the matchup helped simplify what you asked of him defensively today because the Heat were missing, guys and stuff like that. But there are some times where I mean, we know Spo wants to trap Trey, Spo wants to trap ball handlers, and Nance really was a deterrent to that today. And there will be times when that's an important part of the skills that he can offer.
Yeah, so that's why it's going to be hopefully what we don't want is that Okongwu and Nance are going to be out for extended periods of time. That would be pretty damaging because then, you know, is Quinn going to play Capella 30 plus minutes? But I don't think he wants to do that, even if he can, just because of how the Hawks play offense now. Like it seems very intentional how Quinn wants to close games with the smaller center or with center so that they can switch more often on defense, even though Nance isn't particularly good at that. They can switch on defense and then offensively you can just throw it to your center and he's able to make a proper play, whereas Capella is kind of hit or miss there. And yeah, to echo your point, Glenn. So like the Miami Heat are just a really limited offensive team. They get their points through scheme and execution, and so I think it was a good job Quinn to me to get play Garrison Matthews. There are games where playing Garrison Matthews and Larry Nance will burn you just because of the matchup. This was not one of those matchups where it's just like, okay, Tyler Hero, he's the only offensive really threat we have to really be worried about. Bam, quite frankly, Glenn, you talked about how you were confused why they weren't playing through Bam. Like Bam just hasn't been that good offensively the entire season. Um, he's always had weird finishing problems, but now it just seems more exacerbated by the fact that Jimmy Butler's not playing right now, and Tyler Hero's, having the best start to his career. He might be an all-star the way he's playing, and like Bam's kind of like regressed as an offensive player. Um, I, I I thought the biggest play of the game was DeAndre Hunter just walling Bam off on the post in clutch situation, like on a switch. And once the Hawks realized Bam can't do anything with DeAndre Hunter in the post, the Heat just stopped being a threat to score. Like they literally they took away all their screening action because we're like, we're just gonna switch everything. You have nobody but Tyler Hero who can do anything with the ball in their hands. We'll trap these other guys. We'll force them like they were trapped, like they were like hedging hard to Duncan Robinson to be like, make a play, Duncan. Like I bet you cannot make this skip pass that needs to be made to the corner. Like so, it was. I mean, and what was good about that was that a lot of it was Garrison Matthews and Larry Nance executing on defensive scheme that was required of them. You know, this is a Hawks team that has not executed this often consistently before. It's one thing not to have defensive talent. The Hawks have had issues of lack of defensive talent and executing. Both of those things have gone away this season. That's been pretty good to see.
And just before we go away from the Nance injury, I just wanted to make note of the Okongwu situation. Like his injury was reported December 18th with reevaluation after 1 week, probably not on Christmas Day, but that's the way the timeline would have broke. So the 18th. And so now we're at 10 days without really an update. Like he's been at practice, but no update yet. So it'll be interesting to see if that comes soon or not. Uh,
It'll be interesting to see if Quinn would go Don Barlow or Jalen at center. But it'd be interesting to see. I mean, when you're playing Jokic, I mean, you got to put a big. Let's have to play a lot of minutes against Denver, right? But like against Chicago, they cross matched. They played their four on Vucevic and their five on whoever, Patrick Williams or whoever was at the four there. And so Quinn's been mixing it up a little bit when the five has been a floor spacing, five out type of center in that way. So if they have to play without Nance and Okongwu, I wonder how creative he's going to get with, the center position depending upon matchup game to game.
but it does seem like, and Quinn's going to do whatever game to game based on what's needed. But like in a very general sense, if you're not looking at a specific opponent, Barlow does seem to be ahead of Gay in the sense that, when
Oh yeah.
they're listed, it's a lot of situations where Barlow has been active when Gay has been available and is inactive. So it does seem like they want to, uh, shade that way at least a little bit. But, in a game-to-game situation, it could be very different depending on what the opponent is.
Well, it's not too bad
Agreed.
for Nance.
Yeah. What are your, biggest takeaways from this 3-game winning streak? Minnesota, Chicago, today Miami. What have the Hawks done right over this little stretch?
Well, individually, um, DeAndre Hunter's just, I mean, he's just playing some incredible basketball. Like I don't, he's just, it's not just the fact that he's making all his open three pointers, and he's getting a lot of open three pointers, and like that is an illustration of the offense that the Hawks are running. Like the Hawks are getting good dribble penetration. They're having good offensive sets, offensive processes that gets Hunter open 3-point shots. Like that's kind of been the offense for large stretches of the game where it's like we are looking to get Hunter an open 3-pointer. And so like that's kind of carried them in these last couple games because he's just, he's shooting the cover off the ball. And then as a team, I feel like they're shoot, they've been shooting the ball a lot better on offense, and that's kind of helped them navigate their spacing issues, especially with Bogey not being available. But This feels kind of like a continuation of what they were doing in the play-in. I mean, the cup tournament or in-season tournament or whatever. It's just they're just continuing to build on what they had already done, and they're starting to sustain a good level of play, which is good to see because they did have some setbacks. The Memphis game in particular sticks out where without Trey, they really struggled to really do anything on the offensive side of the floor. So like overall, like I mean, said it a lot of times. This is a good basketball team. They're winning these games in the fourth quarter because of their defense. Did it against the Timberwolves, did it against the Bulls, did it again against the Heat with less than 4 minutes to go, where their defense just steps up and they get continue to get stops, and then it's Trey running the show on offense like that. We've seen that type of formula win them playoff games, win them playoff series. So like it's good to see them continue to build on that and like stack wins because uh, if you look at the Eastern Conference right now with the Magic and their injury issues, uh, the fourth seed is there for the taking, uh, and maybe even the three seed, seeing depending on the Knicks. They're good. The Knicks are a good team, but like they're one injury away from not being a good team, if that makes sense. So it's like the Hawks have fought themselves back into good contention here. And it's good to see that maybe they have a chance to get out of the playing round. So that's really helped uh, get fans more enthusiastic of what they're doing. Because earlier when the Hawks were struggling, there was a lot of fire Quinn, same old Trey. Now it's kind of flipped. So that's like it's good to see that the fans are starting to get behind what the Hawks are doing because the results are following their good process.
Well, I was going to ask you later today if you thought the Hawks were a top six team, so I guess I know your answer now.
Um, well, I don't know if they're that. I'm saying they can be that. I don't know if
Okay,
they
well,
are.
do you think that they will do that? Do you think that the Hawks are going to finish the season in the top six?
It's a probably a coin flip just because of injuries. If you told me perfect health, I'd absolutely believe that, but I don't know. And we just heard about Nance now being potentially out for this extended period of time. We don't know what's going on with the Kongu. Let's make no mistake, the Hawks have absolutely missed Nyeka Kongu. The Spurs game sticks out probably in my mind's eye because they didn't have that combination of size and athleticism to guard Wemby out on the perimeter on these closeouts.
Right.
And Wemby just buried them the entire game. So and there's also been the Bulls game, like the Bulls were just eating Nance alive in isolation. They were get putting Nance into action, and Zach LaVine was just hitting the easy win button of just knowing that Nance does not have the foot speed, so he's going to be playing back. I can blow by him at any point. If he's not going to contest my shot, I'm going to take these practice jumpers, and he hit 6 threes in the third quarter. Hawks should have absolutely lost that game, but they ended up rallying. But like you know, they're a Hunter injury away from being in the bad times. Like that's just the reality of this team. They're Trey Young. Trey Young misses 3 games. That's probably a 3 game losing streak. They do not have a backup point. Like there are real problems with this team right now. But if you told me their top 8 guys were healthy, I'd absolutely believe they were a top 6 team in the Eastern Conference. I'd say they're top 4, honestly. But health is with the amount of parity in the NBA today. Like if you have any slip with your health, your season can just be uprooted. So I can't say that they're certified top 6 because they're not one of the 3 best teams in the Eastern Conference. If that makes sense. I don't think they're on the Cavaliers and Boston's level as of yet, but I do think they're in that next tier below.
Yeah, I look at the standings, and to answer your question, kind of answer your question with a question. Are the Pacers going to buy or sell, right? Is Miami going to buy or sell? Like that's going to determine a lot of how how congested that 4 through 7 or whatever the number is, 5 through 8, whatever we want to call it is what do the Heat decide to do with their season? What do the Pacers decide to do with their season? Did the Sixers try to fix their roster? I mean, they're 11-17 now, and I have no idea how many games Joel Embiid's going to play this year. And who has any clue how many games he's going to play this year, right?
It should be said. It should be said they're playing a lot better even
Yes.
without Embiid.
Yeah,
Like
right,
they're playing a lot better.
right.
So
But I feel like they need more ball handling and shooting on their roster to kind of so to me, like between now and the trade deadline, there's a lot of TBD around these teams that are right behind the Hawks in the standings. And what they decide to do with this season will have a huge impact on how much competition there is for the 6 seed or the 5 seed, to me.
Tyler mentioned it a minute ago. He talked about the struggle in the Bulls game having a lot to do with the Bulls and what Larry Nance could do defensively. Was there anything else that you didn't like from those first 3 quarters, and what was the difference in the fourth quarter in your mind?
Well, for me, I mean, I thought there was a mix of the Hawks not challenging shooters. The Bulls weren't really attacking the paint except in transition, right? And but also, I mean, the Bulls also made some they made some contested shots too. Some pretty long range contested shots. What I saw in the third, what I saw across the Timberwolves game, the Chicago game, and today's game. Today's game, I thought there was a little bit of like maybe officiating adversity which is going to happen. That's a part of navigating an NBA calendar, right? It's just the Hawks' mental toughness. Like last year, whenever the Hawks had a 12 or 15 point deficit, like what you're watching and you're like, it's going to be 25 in no time. Like that was just how things went last season. And this year they just keep working. I mean, the Bulls shot the lights out in the third quarter, and the Hawks were down a ton of points, and they just kept working possession after possession after possession.
I mean,
And
defined a ton of points because it was like they never really got beyond arms. Like it was always 12, 13, 14. Like it was never 20. Like
the
what the
Bulls,
Bulls
unless
game?
I'm
It was
forgetting
definitely it was.
something.
Oh no, it was 21
that
in
was
the third.
21.
It was
That was
21?
21.
Oh,
It was
Yep.
shoot.
it was
I
seven. It was
forgot.
7. It was 17 in the fourth quarter with like what 6
Yeah,
minutes
I
left to
remember the
go.
17. That's fair.
Yeah,
But
yeah. It was. Oh my goodness. So I was at the game and I was steaming mad for like the first 3 quarters because I'm watching
Way.
the Hawks. I'm
Nobody's
watching the
excited.
Hawks. I'm like I have good seats. I'm seeing the game and I'm watching these guys just refuse to shoot the ball. Like it was a first half of Ricochet passing up shots, Dyson passing up shots, Jalen
Layups.
not looking Jalen not looking to score for some reason, even though the Bulls had no quality defender that could guard him except for Patrick Williams. Every time Patrick Williams was not on him, Jalen Johnson needed to be taking the ball to the rim and finishing through contact because the Bulls have no rim protection. They have nobody who can stop him. He ended up with 30 points. He should have had 40 that game. They needed him to have 40 that game.
it's a career
Honestly,
high.
I understand that, but like when a team does not have the size to compete with you, and they also don't have good, like the Bulls are an awful defensive team, but that first half was just so bad offensively, and I was like genuinely frustrated that they were just letting the Bulls dictate what they do on offense. Now I will say it's a post Christmas game, uh, post holiday. I would imagine the Hawks did not do anything the last 2 days prior and it looked like it. It looked like a team that were getting the cobwebs out, in the first half or whatever. So it's good that they rallied and won the game. But no, but what I liked at the fourth quarter was that Jalen was taking the ball to the rim more consistently, taking more ownership of the offensive possessions, and he did that a lot. You know, an adjustment that I'm interested actually, Glenn, you hearing about. Quinn has stopped staggering Trey and Jalen so much,
Yes.
and he's trying to play them more often. I think that's really helped Jalen scoring. Uh, and like to me, with how well DeAndre Hunter's playing, and I said this on the bad website, as well as Blue Sky. You can follow me there. Uh, that if Jalen without Trey lineups, I don't think are that much that much worse than going with beating DeAndre right now. Like, especially with how DeAndre's operating in offense, I think there's more defensive concerns with that. But offensively, I don't personally have a problem with Quinn not staggering those two because Jalen needs Trey to set him up, like he just does. And then you you know, Jalen gives Trey an outlet. Like they're a great pairing. So and I think the Hawks need to find another. I think it's good the Hawks are trying to build DeAndre to be the guy to carry the offense now instead of having it be Jalen. Because to me, I I said this I said this when they lost to the Bucks. Like they lost that game because Jalen could not sustain good offense without Trae on. Like that was just the reality of the situation. So maybe having a more DeAndre Hunter led focus, which he's earning that trust from his coach. Maybe that's more beneficial to this team. Considering I just think DeAndre is probably the better offensive player. Uh, just with his shooting, like he's just like he's. I don't know if there's 10 better forwards than DeAndre Hunter right now in the NBA. Like I really don't. I granted one of them is on the team, but DeAndre Hunter's playing unreal basketball. Like, that cannot be stressed.
One of the things Quinn said
It's
tonight was kind of tied into what you were saying about the Bulls game. Like it was almost like a backhanded compliment about, we did it tonight. We didn't do it against the Chicago game. He's like, we took care of the ball. And the reason we took care of the ball was because when we were open, we shot it. Like there was no extra playmaking when you didn't need to go for that extra playmaking. He's like, if you got the open shot, take it. And I think he got what he wanted in that regard in this Heat game.
yeah, yeah. The other thing that jumped out at me, like the fourth quarter of the Bulls game. I mean, the Bulls have no leadership on the floor. Like there was no one like leading them, mentally and spiritually, and like no, they were like five zombies on the floor in the fourth quarter. And it was just and the Hawks do have that leadership. The Hawks were pulling together. The Hawks were connected. The Hawks were fighting. The Hawks were trying to claw their way back into the game. And it was just to me that was just such a stark difference between where two teams are. And when AO plays, like he gives them some of that leadership punch. Like he can do that, but he wasn't playing in this game. I thought that they were really missing that. But it was just staggering to me. I know that people were perplexed that Billy Donovan wasn't calling timeout. Once it got inside like 4 minutes and they were down like six or eight, whatever, whenever they get down 6 or 8 points, every coach is going to bank those two timeouts for the very end of the game inside 20s. They're just gonna do that. Right. If I'm down three scores, I can't burn a timeout just to like get my team's head straight. I got to save those two for last 10 seconds of the game or whatever, and I'm fouling the other team. So I didn't find it like maybe he could use one like 5 minutes left or whatever.
The
But once
the
they
the thing was, Glenn, he burned the timeout, like he was burning timeouts early because he didn't like how they were defending the Hawks
Right.
in the
yeah,
second half. Like he burnt it twice early, either in the third and start the fourth, because like
He had one at the
they
start of the fourth when Jalen was just absolutely eviscerating them on the offensive glass.
exactly
And he called
exactly
timeout with like 10 minutes left and he was down to two. And it's like at
two.
that point, you've got the one that you want for your review, you got the one that you want to advance the ball at the end of the game. Like there was nothing to play with left
Yeah,
at that point.
yeah, yeah. So like that's why he didn't use the timeout during the run. But like to your leadership point, Glenn, is actually something my dad, because I took my dad to the game. Uh, he talked about how Jalen Johnson was out there, uh, getting like he pointed out one play where Keaton did something Jalen didn't like, and and Jalen's just having a conversation, talking it out, and I was like, yeah, he does that a lot now. Like he does that with Nance. He does it with Bogey. Like Jalen's kind of like he's kind of a rallier of the troops here, especially on the
yeah,
defensive end where he's kind of pointing stuff out. You see Trey Trey is always talking to his guys on the offense where they need to be, where they need to go, you know. say what say people can say what they want about Trey's leadership off the court. When he's on the floor on the offensive side of the ball, he's one of the best offensive players, and he tells his guys where they need to be to get them quality looks, and like he sets them up perfectly, and like he's just a floor general, and so um, it's good to see that those two guys are, particularly Jalen, who kind of was a soft spoken guy earlier in his career, just his willingness to confront his teammates when he sees something he doesn't like from them, or if he sees something that he likes and he just wants to compliment them or whatever. Like this, it's good to see Jalen take ownership of this team in ways he hadn't in years past.
Yeah, I think for me, I think you do see little glimpses of Trey leading off the court. Eric, you can count how many times he'll say in post game or whatever he uses the phrase "not just me." That's something he wasn't. He uses it a lot. Like when someone says you're doing this, he's like, "Not just me," and he uses that a lot. And if you follow him on social media, he's like pumping his guys. Like he was pumping Hunter on and Jalen today for All Star, and so he's just taking a different approach this year off the court. Now that's the part I can see. Like there's more to that, but on the court, like he's cut down his turnovers the last few games. I was talking about it earlier with someone today that he is being a lot more adamant and vocal. When a guy is in the wrong place on offense, he moves them. Hey, you're at the left
Yes.
3 point break. I need you in the right. You know, and he looks like a guy whose teammates have told him, if I'm in the wrong place, don't be soft with me. Get me moved. Tell me where you want me. And he's like, and I've noticed the last few weeks as he's been doing that more, his turnovers have come down because he's getting his guys in the right place. And he's not being bashful and soft about getting them moved to where they need to be. And I think that's a really, really big part of them cutting down their turnovers.
Oh, to bring up the trade leadership portion, because Glenn, you talked about this a couple years ago about one season you brought up you thought Trey wasn't going to have that many texts. That's happened now this year.
That's
Like he
happening.
just and I think that leaves credence to the fact that he's not frustrated. He's no longer frustrated with the direction of the team. He likes where the team's headed. He likes where they're going, and so he's more calm about the situation because I think to me, just on my outside perspective, he has more belief that this, so like if he doesn't get called, because like Trey was getting fouled an unreal amount this game against the Heat. Uh, but he wasn't anywhere close to getting a tech. And so like that's the level of maturity and leadership. Like I wonder where the Hawks ranks in terms of techs relative to other teams. Like if Trey's not going to argue with be so demonstrative with the refs to get teed up, you're not going to see that from anybody else on this team. And so like they just play through adversity better. And so then when they're down big, they have the belief that as long as we get a couple stops, we have the offensive firepower with Trey, Jalen, DeAndre right now to get back against any team in any game at any point in time. So this is it's that's another aspect of leadership. Glenn, that was the thing we talked about earlier season. Who's going to be the leaders of the team? And it's a lot of these guys have been leaders in their own domain. Trey with the offense, Dyson defensively inspiring his teammates to play harder on the defensive side of the floor. And it's been it's just been pretty awesome to see this team kind of come together.
Yeah, you can really see the Trey stuff like better in person than on you don't get to pick your camera angle if you're watching TV at home, but it's definitely a very a complete U-turn of an experience watching, Trey's demeanor with the referees. Like today, there was one where, you know, Jalen kind of got the high five foul where he hit somebody kind of after the shot was released. And, Trey just went over and talked to the referee and he's kind of showing him where he thought the contact was and why he didn't think it was a foul. And it's like he just does a lot more of that now. Like it's almost like he's he's not really the superstar. It's more like he's the team captain. Like he's just kind of, he's carrying on a dialogue with the referees. And a couple times he'll get heated. Like he got heated tonight when he got absolutely just smashed in the face. But it's not a show me up kind of thing anymore. Even if he's displeased, it's like, hey, I'm going to show you this to let you know that I'm displeased, and then that's it. Like, it doesn't carry over into his play. He doesn't make a hot-headed play in the next 60 seconds if he didn't like the call. Like, it's very, very calm and sedate. And you know, one of the things that I really like, because you were talking about Jalen and and Trey and where people need to be, like when the Heat tried to go zone tonight, like it was Trey and Jalen and those two, and they just shut it down. It's like you're not going to be able to play this defense against us because Jalen made exactly the right cut, and even if it was a difficult pass, Trey made some just unbelievable passes, especially near the end of the first half, and it's just like, yeah, that defense just isn't going to work. Like you can't have Jalen going with a head of steam from 15 feet towards the rim because you were playing his own defense. Anytime he got even a little bit open, Trey got him the ball, and it was just basically a disaster for the Heat once he got rumbling like that. Still good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's funny. I made a comment like a week ago that the Hawks are winning games with their defense because they're not good enough offensively in the fourth quarter to play from behind, and they throw a lot. I mean, the Bulls were terrible on defense in the fourth quarter, so you have to take both sides of that. But they, against the Timberwolves, they showed better offense down the clutch. I felt like Bulls for sure. And then today, I thought they got points when they needed them. And so maybe they're starting to turn the corner a little bit with their clutch offense too. I'll have to see if that sustains it.
They they got the
West
Heat in
Coast,
foul trouble
yeah,
in the fourth quarter, and
yeah,
that
they,
really helped.
yep, yep.
That helped immensely. That kind of like turned the tide where it's like, and they've done it a couple times where they get teams in foul trouble, but they don't take advantage. This time when they got in foul trouble, every time there was slight contact, they were exaggerating. Because I mean, granted, the Heat were fouling the entire game. I'm not exactly sure why the refs decided to call it in the fourth quarter. If I was a Heat player, I would be frustrated, be like, I mean, we've done this for 3 quarters. Why are we calling it now? So I'm just glad they finally called it. But that once they got the Heat in foul trouble, they were like, we're not going to just let them off the hook, and not get to the free throw line, not take advantage that they can't be as physical as they used to be on the offensive side of the floor. So
Yeah, and I mean, Spo had to play small lineups today, and one of the risks that come with small lineups is that when you try to be physical with a bigger opponent, that you're gonna foul, and that was part of the pattern of what kind of played out, later in the fourth quarter today. The Heat were trying to elevate their physicality for whatever reason. Sometimes officials, when smaller players and against bigger player, they're gonna call the smaller player for the foul, and that was part of the trend today. But it'll be interesting to see if they can sustain some of this improved clutch offense. West Coast road trips are exhausting. They're hard. You go into different elevations and different time zones and all that sort of stuff. And so remember the last one they lost in Portland, you know. And so it'll be interesting to see if they are able to navigate this West Coast road trip a little bit more stable play than they did that short one they had last month.
Before we leave, I just randomly throwing topics out here. I wanted to mention that, like, again, one of the other things that, like, watching Trey in person as opposed to maybe watching on TV, like, one of the things that he's just absolutely nuts for these days. It seems like if DeAndre does something good, Trey goes nuts. I don't know what it is. He's just so happy for DeAndre, like, more than like any other player. I don't know what it is, but they, he seems to be relishing DeAndre's hot streak.
And
More
and and,
more than
and
maybe the average player. Like he just seems over the moon about DeAndre at the moment.
they need a shooting, but I mean, also just DeAndre's showing emotion, I think is good. And DeAndre willing to talk trash, when he's like, when someone can't guard him. As long as he's not getting a technical foul at a bad time, I think that's good. And I think the Hawks players want him to be aggressive. And I mean, he's attacking the rim. It's not just the 3-point shot. When he gets chased off the line, he attacks the paint, attacks the rim. And so he's doing. I mean, hopefully he keeps it up, and knock on wood, hopefully he stays healthy because he's a critical part of the
yep.
rest of their season. And that so just hope that knee holds up.
I have a question for you. This is more of a guessing game than a question. Trey Young, Dyson Daniels, DeAndre Hunter, Jalen Johnson, Clint Capella. For that five-player unit, the one that they use to close games when it's, not small ball with a Onyeka or something like that. What do you think their defensive rating is this season? If you had to guess. I know it to the integer. I don't know if I get the decimal point right. I think I know what it is, but
Is it below 105?
is it below 105? It is below 105.
Yeah. It's like it might be like 102 or something. No, I do know it when Jalen, Dyson, and Clint are on the floor, like teams can't score on the Hawks at all.
Have fun. Have fun.
You got a number? You don't have a number?
I'm gonna go 103.4.
It's 97. I think it's 97-1.
Wow.
I mean, I think part of it is like they have other good defensive units, but like that's a good offensive unit too. Like it's always going to be a little bit clunky, but if you can do enough with with Dyson Daniels and Clint keeping them busy, like the other three offensive players are enough of a problem that it just they get enough offense there, and then the defense is just so much. All
That's
right, I
fun.
think we're out of time, so
Yeah.
good
Good night,
night,
Bob.
Bob.
Good night, Bob.